Today we're going to be going through a functionalist view of the family. We're going to go through the two main functionalist theorists, Murdock and Parsons. This is going to help you with your sociology A level. At the end of the video, I'm going to go through two pieces of evidence that support a functionalist view of the family. If you stick around to the end of this video, you're definitely going to get the information that's helped you get that A star. I'm going to begin by giving a functionalist view of society in general. If you're confident on this, use the timestamps to skip to the section on Murdock. Functionalism is a structural theory. Structural theories argue people are strongly shaped by society, that we are strongly shaped by social institutions such as the family, education, media, and they have a strong hold over our behaviour and they regulate our behaviour in predictable ways. Structural theories take a top-down view of society. They start by thinking of society as a whole, then they think about the role of institutions, and then they think how they shape individuals' behaviour. From a functionalist perspective, society's most important need is social order. So functionalism looks at the ways in which the different parts of society, family, education, media, contribute to maintaining social order in society and maintaining something called value consensus. The value consensus refers to the agreement on the norms, values, traditions, ways of leading your life in a given society. The family socialises children into this, and this allows them to find their place in society, to fit into society, which again reduces conflict. It promotes harmony and stability. The first functionalist theory we're going to look at is Murdock. Murdock argued that the nuclear family was a universal feature of all human societies. How could he make such a sweeping claim? Well, he studied over 200 societies and he found the nuclear family, or a type of the nuclear family, in all of them, and he concluded it was therefore an essential building block of all human societies. And he said it was an essential building block because it performed 4 functions that only the nuclear family could perform. Now, the first function was stable satisfaction of the sex drive. Adults who are in a nuclear family, they're in a committed relationship that stably satisfies the sex drive. If they weren't in that relationship and adults were all seeking sexual fulfillment all over the place, that would be very chaotic, it would be disorderly, it might promote conflict. The second function is reproduction of children. This is very straightforward. Families have children and that's essential for human societies to continue. The third function is socialisation of the young. Only the family has the time and the patience and the love and the care to teach the norms and values to children, and that's an essential part of children learning how to fit into society, learning the value consensus. And the fourth function is meeting the family's economic needs. What we mean by that is food, shelter, anything that needs to be produced by the family. Family units are best at producing that because of the numbers of people involved. It's much more efficient and it benefits society. The first criticism is from a feminist perspective. Feminists argue the way that functionalists describe the family disadvantages women. It puts women in the traditional gender role of being the housewife whilst the man is the breadwinner. And of course that disadvantages women by stopping them gaining employment and progressing their lives in other ways. The second big criticism is that it's out of date. Since the 1960s, family diversity has increased massively in the UK. We've got a whole range of family types. The nuclear family is in decline, although it is still the most common family type. Also, gender roles have changed substantially. You've got the rise of the female breadwinner and the stay-at-home dad. So Murdock's theory is no longer relevant really to modern society. The third criticism is by O'Connell, and he criticised Murdock's view that the family and a nuclear family type is universal in all societies. He found lots of examples where actually the nuclear family wasn't the common family type, or even the family as we know it, and some of them are on the screen now. We're now going to look at Parsons' functional fit theory. Parsons takes a historical perspective. He argues the family changed from an extended family in pre-industrial society, i.e. agricultural society, to the nuclear family in industrial society around the 1700s. Now, why did this happen? Parsons argues the family type, the main family type in society, will match the needs of society at that time. So why did the extended family match the needs of agricultural society? Well, the extended family is very large. At that time, the extended family performed all of the functions in society. It was responsible for work, families worked together, healthcare, childcare, education, Everything was done in the family, so you needed a large family type to accommodate that. Parsons argues the needs of society changed during the Industrial Revolution, and therefore the type of family changed to the nuclear family. So when we're using this phrase, the functional fit, what we're saying is the family type that best fits the type of society. So why was the nuclear family a better fit for industrial society? Well, the first reason Parsons gives is geographical mobility. A smaller family type can move much more easy than a very large extended family. Why was that helpful for the Industrial Revolution? Because factories were springing up, mines were springing up, shipbuilding, all of these industries were being created, and it benefited society for small family units to be able to move to different cities in different parts of the country to produce economic goods. The second reason is the family is more socially mobile. What Parsons means by this is in the extended family, there would have been very traditional family structures. The eldest male would have been head of the family and everyone would have followed their lead. But that would have meant slow change in terms of work, slow change in taking up opportunities in the economy. In a nuclear family, which is much smaller, children have the freedom to make their own decisions. They don't have to run decisions by their parents, which means they can take up work in new industries. So the nuclear family is more socially mobile because decisions can be made by younger members of the family. They're not bound by tradition, they're not bound by what the eldest male in the family wants to do. And again, that helps in the Industrial Revolution because we have this fast sort of economic change taking place. Third reason is structural differentiation. So this term refers to the fact that the family began to specialise in roles that we now associate with the family, really raising children and being the place in which adults have a relationship. Structural differentiation is referring to the fact that the government primarily steps in and takes responsibility for all of those roles that were previously performed by the extended family. So healthcare, obviously universal healthcare was being gradually introduced, education was being gradually introduced. So the family didn't need to be as large. We didn't need the big extended family because the roles and jobs that the family performed were much smaller. Families weren't working together in the sense of producing things on a farm, they were going to work somewhere externally. The first criticism we can make is the extended family wasn't the most common family type in pre-industrial societies. Church records show only about 10% of families were extended families. So Parsons' idea that the extended family was the main family type and then we moved to nuclear simply isn't backed up by the evidence. The extended family wasn't that common in pre-industrial society. The second big criticism we can make is that extended families were still common in industrial society. Even in the 1970s, Wilmot and Young, two sociologists, found that the extended family was still common in parts of London. And this is because life was very hard in industrial society. So the extended family still had a place, it still performed lots of those functions we talked about. The third criticism is the extended family is still a feature of family life today. The dispersed extended family particularly, which is where families still maintain connections but they simply don't live under one roof, so grandparents will be involved in their children's lives, that's still very common, and the traditional extended family of living under one roof hasn't disappeared either. Despite a number of the roles performed by the extended family now being performed by the government and people going to work, Parsons argues there were two roles the family performed that were irreducible. They couldn't be done by any other institution. And the first one is primary socialisation, socialising children into the norms and values of society. Parsons argued only the nuclear family, in the patient, loving environment that exists, could teach children the norms and values of society. Another part of this is gender role socialisation. It teaches children about their gender, very old-fashioned, obviously, and easy to criticise. The second function was stabilisation of adult personalities. What this is referring to is Parsons' belief that men and women had biological gender roles, that men were biologically suited to fulfil the instrumental role, which refers to the breadwinner role, and that women were biologically suited to the expressive role, which means the emotional role in the house, looking after children and keeping the house happy essentially, along with doing all the domestic chores. Don't make the mistake of just saying domestic chores, it's not that. the expressive role is emotional work. So Parsons believed that both of these roles balance out adult personalities, that the man would go to work, be stressed by work, and he would come home and the woman would de-stress him. And they expressed this through something called the warm bath theory. The man would go to work, get stressed, come home, and the wife would have a warm bath ready for them to relax. You know, the family would be looked after, dinner on the table, etc. Traditional gender roles, but remember, from a functionalist perspective, they actually believed these came from biology. The first criticism we can make of Parsons is that he exaggerates the extent to which children are blank pages simply absorbing the values of their family and the value consensus of society. It's too deterministic. That's the phrase you can use. Too deterministic assumes that people are simply passive puppets who just accept the ideas that they're taught. And of course, children have got their own mind. The second big criticism is it's too positive. It ignores the dark side of family life. We know abuse and conflict are sometimes features of family life, and functionalism completely ignores this. And the third criticism is, of course, from a feminist perspective. It ignores the exploitation of women. If we accept a functionalist view of society that women are biologically suited to fulfill this emotional caring role, it means we're saying women are only ever going to be stuck in family life, that they can't pursue careers in education, and that they can't pursue different roles even within the family itself. The first key piece of evidence is the fact that married couples are more stable. You're more likely to have family breakdown and couple breakdown if you are unmarried. And this would support a functionalist view that the nuclear family promotes stability in family life and in society more generally. We're moving into the territory of new right theory here, so you can bring in the new right to back up a functionalist view of the family. The second piece of evidence is the fact that some sociologists have found evidence that children from lone parent households tend to do less well in school and have less favourable health and employment outcomes. Now, this is a debatable piece of research. Other sociologists will say, well, that's simply down to poverty. Lone parent households are more likely to live in poverty. It's not to do with the family type. Now, the bonus piece of advice is criticise functionalism from a feminist perspective. It's the easiest way to build marks. Feminism and functionalism completely opposed to each other. They take opposite view. There are videos on the screen now of a feminist view of the family. Watch them, it will help boost those grades. That's all for now, folks. Bye-bye.